All right, guys. So today we're going to be moving on to another form that, to me, is one of the most useful things that you can really use when it comes to graphing equations lines, especially when you're given specific information. And so yesterday, you remember we went through slope-intercept form, and you were given an example where you had to take. Let me just show you that example real quick. Let's just look at that. So we were looking at number 13 here where you had to take a slope and a certain point, and we had to go through. We had to do this work, and I'll show you this working again here. You probably remember it from yesterday. Probably still having thoughts about it, but we had to basically take that information, put it all into here, figure out what B was, and go back and put that into here and try to figure out what that equation line was. Well, point slope form helps you to be able to do that kind of in one step. So I'm going to go ahead and write that form right over here for us. And this form is basically y minus y1 equals m times the quantity x minus x1. And I know that looks really, really daunting right now. But again, it's very similar with what we've already had. You see the Y1, you see the X1, you see the X, you see the M. A lot of the same players are still there, but it's a way for us to take a point and take a slope and be able to quickly get something to slope intercept form. Okay, so the first task that I've got for you on this assignment is basically just to take something that's already written in slope intercept form and get it, or I'm sorry, written in point slope form and get it to slope intercept form. So remember, slope intercept form is y equals mx plus b, and that's the way you're going to see most anything that you take a look at on a standardized test or anything like that. So that's something we really need to get familiar with, but we need to be able to navigate when things are given to us a different way, and we have to try to get them into this form. Okay, so if you notice here, I've already got my y on the left-hand side, which is the way my slope intercept form is. But the issue is I've got a -2 over here. But even beyond that, if you look over here on this side, I have this -7/2 that's being multiplied times a binomial over here, okay? So really, order of operations, I really need to take care of this over here first, because if you notice, I don't have anything in the parentheses I can do, but I do have multiplication here, and I don't have any multiplication over here. Okay, so let's take a look at this, see what we can do with this. And I'm going to write it right over here. Y minus 2 equals -7/2 times the quantity x plus 2. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and distribute this -7/2 x. So I'm going to just write this part the way it is. Y minus 2 equals -7/2 times x. So if I take -7/2 times x, I basically just squeeze those two numbers together and I'm done. Okay. The harder part, the more difficult part probably for you guys will be this part, because I also have to distribute this -7/2 and multiply it times a 2. Okay. So I'm going to move right down here, -7/2 times 2. Now remember when we did this before, we talked about fractions. You can make any fraction, any number a fraction. So if I have a +2, I can write that as 2 over 1. And then when I multiply fractions straight across, again, -7 times 2 is -14, and 2 times 1 is 2, so that equals a -7. Okay? So now that's basically -7/2 times 2 equals -7. So I can go ahead and put that -7 right here. And now I'm almost there, because now I just have to get this 2 away from here, this -2. I need to get this y by itself. So in order to do that, I'm going to add 2 to both sides. Now remember, I'm not going to add it to everything over here. I'm just going to add it to whatever like terms I have. So you notice I have a -7 right here. So I'm going to add it to right there. Again, if we were multiplying, I would have to multiply times everything over here. But where I'm just doing addition or subtraction, I don't have to do that. Okay? So over here, -2 plus 2 is going to go away. So I'm going to get y equals -7/2 x. And then -7 plus 2 is a -5. So this would be my final answer for number 1. All right, now we're going to actually work an example like we worked yesterday, but we're going to use point slope form. And I think you're going to see pretty quickly what I was referring to when I said this should be a lot easier with point slope form. So let's try to work this out real quick. We're going to look at number 6. And for number 6, it says that we go through the point 0, -3, and we have a slope of 1/2. So we're given kind of similar information like we did yesterday. But again, this time we're going to use point slope form. I think you're going to figure out it works a lot better. All right, so here we go. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And I want to make this point about this form right here. Again, this is point slope form. Okay, point slope form. And what I want you to understand about this is these negative signs are just like the negative signs on the slope formula. They have to be there. Okay, so let's look at what we need to plug in. Over here, this is my x coordinate, and this is my y coordinate. And here is my slope. So I'm simply going to input the information that's been given to me in each place. So here we go. I'm going to do y minus. Now for y1, I'm going to put in the y coordinate. Notice I made sure to put my negative sign there. So I have y minus a -3. Okay, equals m, which is my slope right here, 1/2, times x minus, again, always put that minus sign in there, minus, here we have 0. So I'm going to put 0 in for this. All right. Now, before you get excited, we're going to work all this out, and it's going to make a whole lot more sense. All right. So if I've got y minus a -3, what really happens there? Remember, I got to keep change. So y, change this to a positive, change this to a positive. So really what I have is y plus 3. It just changes the sign. And here I've got 1/2, and we're going to use the same strategy we used up in the problem before. 1/2 times x equals 1/2 x. And what is 1/2 times -0? Well, anything times 0 is just 0. It really just goes away. So all of that is just kind of going away. So now I'm left with y plus 3 equals 1/2 x. And again, to get this y by itself, I have to get rid of this positive 3. So I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. Now let's look at this. 3 minus 3 just goes away. So I get y equals 1/2 x, because that's my m term. Remember, I want to kind of keep it in that format. And then -3 is not a like term. So guess what? That becomes your y-intercept right there. So very quickly, in just 4 steps, we got to where we got to yesterday without having to find b, put b back in, do all this other kind of stuff. Okay? All right, let's look at another example. And this time we're given the point, the 2 points, and we're told to do the same thing. Okay? So unfortunately, you are going to have to go ahead and figure out what the slope is because you don't know right now. So let's go ahead and label our points x1, y1, x2, y2. And I'm going to go ahead and do my formula for finding slope from 2 points, which again is m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, my change in y over my change in x. We keep using those terms over and over and over, hopefully, so that you're getting them. Y2, again, I've already got labeled up here as 1. Subtract, remember these are part of the formula. 1 subtract 2 over 0, which is my x2 value, minus 3, which is my x1 value. So now I have 1 minus 2, which is a -1. I have 0 minus 3, which is a -3. And notice here I've got a negative divided by a negative. Well, that's going to equal a positive. So my slope is 1/3. Okay? So now I've got my slope, and now I have at least 1 point. Now again, I can choose either one of these points I want. I'm going to give you a little bit of a hint. Anytime you see a 0 in one of your points, then I would highly encourage you to use that point because you know something is going to cancel, something's going to go away. Okay? So now we're going to go right back to our point slope form, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Okay, now we're going to substitute in our values. Y minus, remember this minus is part of the formula, this minus is part of the formula, so it has to be there. Y subtract, my y coordinate is a 1 that I'm using for this particular one. So 1 equals my slope, which we figured out was 1/3, times x minus, again, I want to make sure I put that minus in there every time, minus 0, okay, because 0 is my x coordinate that I'm using. Again, you could use either one of these, but anytime you see a 0 in there, I would use that particular point, okay? You can't, and one thing you can't do is you can't use like the 1 from here and the 3 from over here. You have to use either or, either this one or that one, okay? So let's go ahead and finish our work in here. So I have y minus 1, not really anything else I could do with that. 1/3 times x is just 1/3 x. 1/3 times negative 0, a lot like that one we did a while ago. Guess what? It cancels. And so I'm done with that particular side of the equation. The only thing I need to do now is to get rid of this negative 1. And I do that by doing inverse operations, which means I need to add 1 to both sides. So I end up with a final answer of y equals 1/3 x plus 1. Again, hopefully you're going to like this form a little bit better. I know it's maybe a little bit harder to remember this particular formula, but once you get it down and you start using it a few times, I think you're really going to like it a lot better. And hopefully this video has been helpful to you. Let us know if you have any questions or concerns.